So welcome to another deep dive. And today we're not just talking about your average robot, years and stuff. We're going way beyond that.
Yeah.
We're talking about how Meta, the Facebook and Instagram Meta,
Right.
is diving headfirst into robotics. And they're doing it in a way that's
Really interesting.
yeah, super interesting. They're teaching robots to feel. We're talking actual
Sense of touch.
sense of touch, yeah. And to help us, break this all down, we've got some great articles. We've got one from Analytics India Magazine, one from Business Today, and one from Slashdot.
Yeah, and each one takes a slightly different angle, which I think will be interesting for our deep dive.
Right, exactly. So think about it. Like every day you use your sense of touch for almost everything. How do you even begin to teach a robot to do that?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question, right? And it's something that I think a lot of researchers have been struggling with
Yeah.
for a long time. And I think what's fascinating about Meta's approach is that they're really trying to tackle it
head on.
head on. So one of their innovations is this thing called Sparsh.
Okay, Sparsh.
And this...
What is that? Is that like a sensor or something?
It's not just a sensor.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in a way, but it's actually like an entirely new way for AI to even understand touch.
Okay.
Think about it this way. Traditional systems, you need to train them on tons and tons of data, labeled data for specific tasks. But what Sparsh is doing is it's designed to work across many different types of sensors.
Yeah.
So it's like giving a robot a much more general sense of touch.
So instead of like, okay, this is an apple and this is how you pick it up, they're teaching the robot, like, this is how you
hold something.
This is how much pressure to apply.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really cool.
So they can adapt to different objects and different shapes and sizes.
Yeah. So what kind of like hardware, what are they actually using to give the robots this sense of touch?
Well, they have this really impressive creation called the MetaDigit 360.
The MetaDigit 360.
Okay. And this is like...
What is that?
It's a robotic fingertip.
Oh, wow.
With human-level sensitivity.
Human level, really?
Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy.
Wow.
But that's what they're claiming. I mean, this fingertip can detect tiny, tiny differences in texture.
Yeah.
Even the slightest changes in force. Even like temperature variations.
Okay.
And the way it achieves this is through a vision-based approach.
Wait. Vision-based? So there's like a
camera in this fingertip. Yeah, essentially.
Oh, wow.
They have this really tiny but powerful lens that covers the whole fingertip.
Okay.
So it can see the surface in incredible detail.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's not just like feeling pressure. It's actually like processing visual information about the surface.
Yeah, exactly.
I was way beyond like anything I would have imagined.
Right. It's way beyond just detecting pressure. I mean, if you think about the potential applications of that. Right. It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, robots that could perform surgery or handle really fragile objects or create ththese incredibly realistic VR experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can actually feel the virtual objects.
Right. So then you've got, the Digit 360. But what's really interesting is they're not just stopping at the single fingertip.
No.
They have the MetaDigit Plexus.
Right.
What is that?
So this is a system that connects multiple Digit 360s together across an entire hand.
An entire hand. So like the whole hand.
A whole robotic hand, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Think of it like the nervous system of a human hand.
So it's not just the fingertip that can feel, but the whole hand can.
So it allows for this coordinated movement and manipulation.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right. So now you're talking about things like grasping delicate objects, assembling things.
Yeah.
Mimicking the fluidity and dexterity of a human hand.
Yeah. Playing the piano. All that kind of stuff.
I mean, maybe not quite playing the piano yet.
Not yet. Give it a few years.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're really going all in on robotics. But what does this have to do with, like, their overall
strategy?
Weren't they all about the metaverse, like, a couple years ago?
Right. And I think that's a really great question because it does seem like there's been a little bit of a shift in strategy. But I think what's important to remember is that Meta sees this robotics work as a crucial part of their broader AI goals.
Oh, okay.
Right? So their AI chief scientist, Jan LeCun, has been talking about this concept of autonomous machine intelligence, or AMI.
Oh, AMI.
Right.
Yeah.
For years now. And this is like the big picture goal.
Right. Big picture.
Of creating machines that can learn and act independently to help us in everyday life.
Right. And a robot that can feel is kind of like a step in that direction.
It's a huge step in that direction because if you think about it, so many of the things we do on a daily basis, from cooking to cleaning to caring for others, it requires a very sophisticated sense of touch.
Right.
So if robots can master that, it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay, so Meta's doing this, but they're not the only ones.
Right.
Right.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, NVIDIA
is another big player.
They're doing a lot in this space as well.
Yeah, they're really leveraging AI to kind of
push the
boundaries of what robots can do. So, for example, they have this thing called Project GR000T.
That's GR00T. What is that?
That's their foundation model.
Oh, okay.
For building humanoid robots.
Like a blueprint.
A blueprint, yeah.
Okay.
And they've also created Over, which is a neural network.
Oh, wow.
That helps to control...
like the movement.
The robot's body, how it moves and interacts.
Okay.
And then they also have Dex Mimic Gen.
Dex Mimic Gen.
Which uses synthetic data to speed up the training process.
So they're both making big bets.
Big bets, yeah.
On robotics. But what's interesting to me is that they're both taking this open source approach.
That's what I think is so fascinating.
Yeah, where they're making their tools and their research available to...
like wider community.
A wider community.
So it's not just them working in isolation. It's like
everyone.
Everyone can collaborate.
Oh, that's really cool.
Which I think could lead to...
faster progress.
Some really rapid innovation.
But are there any downsides to that? Like making these tools so...
well, that's the question.
Widely available.
That we need to grapple with. Because on the one hand, open sourcing leads to these amazing breakthroughs.
Yeah.
But it does raise important questions about risks,
Right.
Like, could this technology be misused? What are the ethical implications?
Yeah. It's like any powerful technology. It's
a balancing act.
A balancing act, between
pushing innovation forward and making sure it's used responsibly.
So it's not just about the tech, it's about thinking about...
the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
The implications.
Yeah, and so that actually kind of leads into our next topic. We've been talking about touch, but... What about the other senses? Like, could robots one day...
Smell. Yeah, why not?
Is that something that Meta is working on?
Not specifically that we know of, but the idea of robots being able to smell, it's definitely gaining traction in research.
So how would that even work? I mean, we smell things because of...
chemical reactions.
How do you make a machine smell?
Well, it all comes down to sensors.
Yeah.
Really, really advanced sensors that can detect and analyze different molecules in the air.
Okay.
They call these electronic nosing.
Electronic nosing.
And they're already being used in things like the food industry.
Really?
For quality control, to make sure products have the right aroma and flavor.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And environmental monitoring.
Right.
To detect hazardous materials and gas leaks.
Oh, okay.
So the technology's there.
But to, like, apply that to robots? To give them an actual sense of smell?
That's a whole other
needs a lot more
level of sophistication.
Right.
But if you think about how our sense of smell works, it's all about patterns, right? Our brains learn to associate certain combinations of molecules with specific smells.
Okay.
And that's something that AI is really, really good at.
Recognizing patterns.
Making connections.
So you could teach a robot to, like, smell smoke.
Exactly.
And then, like, sound an alarm.
Alert firefighters.
Oh, wow.
Or imagine search and rescue robots that could sniff out survivors.
Oh, that would be incredible.
In a disaster zone. Or robots that could detect gas leaks before they become dangerous.
So touch, smell, I mean, that's really starting to...
yeah, it's amazing.
...become much more...
human-like.
Human-like, yeah. And I wonder if all this work that Meta is doing with touch, even though they're not working on smell right now, could eventually play into that, you know?
Absolutely.
Like these multi-sensory robots?
It's entirely possible because, remember, their big picture goal is to create a more general purpose AI.
Yeah.
Machines that can really learn and adapt to different situations.
Right.
And that would almost certainly involve integrating multiple senses.
So maybe someday we'll have robots that can not only feel, but...
smell. See? Here.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
But I guess that also brings up some questions, right?
Big questions.
I mean, if robots are going to be so...
human-like.
How does that change our relationship with them? I mean, I know people who are already, like, emotionally attached to their Roombas.
Right.
So what happens when they start looking like us, acting like us? I mean, that's
a big one.
That's a huge question.
As a society.
Yeah. And that's something that will definitely need to
grandma with.
So bringing it back to Meta for a second, what's their end game with all this? What are they actually hoping to achieve?
Good question.
With all this investment in robots?
It seems like there's been a bit of a shift, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, just a couple of years ago, they were all about the metaverse.
The metaverse.
These immersive digital worlds.
Yeah, it was like the buzzword for a while.
It was everywhere.
And then it kind of died down.
It's quieted down.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've abandoned it entirely.
Okay.
Because it's possible that they see robotics as a way to make the metaverse more of a reality.
Okay. Yeah.
Not just a virtual escape, but a place where you can actually
interact
in a physical way.
Okay, so instead of just seeing and hearing in the metaverse, you could actually feel things.
You could feel things, manipulate objects, experience sensations like heat or cold.
Oh, that's so cool.
Through
that would be amazing.
These robotic avatars that could interact with the virtual environment.
And you know what? You just reminded me of something. Caitlin Kalinowski.
Right.
The former head of hardware at Meta.
Who led the AR glasses development?
She just moved to OpenAI.
Yeah, to lead their robotics and consumer hardware division.
So what does that tell you?
I think it's a pretty big signal.
Yeah.
That OpenAI, which is known for their AI,
right,
is getting really serious about robotics.
So are we heading toward some kind of robotics rivalry?
It's a possibility, right?
Like between like the two giants?
Two giants, yeah.
Oh, man. That would be something.
And that kind of competition could actually be a good thing?
Yeah.
Because it could drive innovation.
Push them both forward.
Yeah.
And if it leads to robots that can actually help solve real-world problems,
right, exactly,
then that's a win for everybody.
But I think it also underscores the need for
regulation,
ethical guidelines. So we need to make sure that the robots of the future are
used responsibly
in
a way that benefits everyone.
Okay, so we've gone from like robot noses to the metaverse to like a potential robotics rivalry between Meta and
OpenAI.
What do we even talk about next?
I think it's important to just take a step back and remember that all of this is still very much in development.
Right.
I mean, the field of robotics is evolving at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
What seems like science fiction today could be reality tomorrow.
It's both exciting and
a little daunting.
Yeah, a little bit daunting.
Right. When you think about machines that could potentially surpass human capabilities in a lot of ways.
It's kind of a reminder that we need to be
involved
in shaping this future, not just passively watching it happen.
Right.
We need to be having these conversations about the ethical implications, the potential impact on jobs, and the kind of world we want to create.
So to kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with?
Key takeaways. Well, I think it's just incredible to see how far robotics has come. I mean, we've gone from these clunky machines in factories to robots that can sense and interact with the world in ways that we never thought possible.
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling to think that just a few years ago, we were impressed by a robot that could follow a line.
Right.
Now we're talking about robots doing surgery and helping with disaster relief.
It's a revolution.
Yeah.
And I think Meta's work is a really good example of how this technology is evolving their approach with,
adaptability,
the general purpose learning.
Yeah.
Could really change the way we design robots.
And like we said, they're not the only ones doing it.
Right. NVIDIA.
But the fact that so much of this research is open source.
I think that's really key.
Yeah.
It's a global effort.
Yeah.
It's not just one company or one country.
So as we kind of move into, the next part of our deep dive, let's the one thing.
The one thing to remember.
You want our listener to really think about.
I think the most important thing is that the future of robotics.
Yeah.
It's not predetermined.
Right.
It's something we're actively shaping.
We're not
right now through our research, our investments, our policies,
our choices,
our everyday choices.
We're active participants.
And it's up to us to make sure this technology is used for good.
To make the world a better place.
To benefit humanity.
That's a great point to kind of, transition to our final thoughts.
Okay.
But before we do that, we got to take a quick break. So we'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back. I think that's a great point. all this stuff with robots and touch, it makes me think about...
What about their other senses?
Exactly. Like smell.
Robot noses?
Yeah, robot noses. We were just talking about how Meta is pushing the boundaries with touch.
Yeah.
But could they apply that same kind of thinking to smell? I mean, think about it.
I don't even know where you would start.
Right? It seems so complex.
Like we smell because of chemicals, right?
Chemical reactions.
Yeah. How do you teach a machine to have a chemical reaction?
Well, you don't teach it to have a chemical reaction per se.
Really?
But you can build sensors, highly specialized sensors, that can detect specific molecules in the air.
Really? Like that's a thing?
Oh, yeah. They're called electronic noses.
Electronic noses, okay.
And they're already being used in some pretty surprising places.
Like what?
Well, take the food industry, for instance.
Okay.
They use electronic noses for quality control.
Interesting.
Yeah, to make sure that, a batch of coffee or whatever has that perfect aroma and flavor.
So it's not just some, like, far-out research project.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And then you've got things like environmental monitoring.
Okay.
Where they use these electronic noses to detect, say, hazardous materials or gas leaks.
That makes sense. So, okay, the technology exists to kind of detect things in the air.
Right.
But to apply that to robots, to actually give them a sense of smell?
That's where things get really tricky.
Yeah, that seems like a whole other level.
Because it's not just about detecting those molecules, it's about interpreting them.
Right.
Figuring out what those patterns mean.
So, like, is it a good smell? Is it a bad smell?
Exactly. And that's where AI comes in. Because think about it. Our sense of smell, it's all about our brains learning to recognize certain patterns of molecules.
Okay, yeah.
Like this combination of molecules means coffee, and this one means smoke.
Right.
And AI, that's what it's really good at, pattern recognition.
So you could theoretically teach an AI...
Train it, yeah.
...to recognize the smell of, I don't know...
smoke, for example.
Yeah, smoke, and then program it to, like...
take action.
Yeah, sound an alarm,
Exactly. Or imagine search and rescue robots.
Yeah.
That could sniff out survivors in a collapsed building.
Wow, that would be...
That would have been incredible.
Game changer.
Or robots that could patrol pipelines, smelling for gas leaks.
Oh, yeah, like prevent disasters from happening.
Exactly. I mean, the possibilities are really mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing when you think about it. We've been talking about touch, but if you combine touch with smell...
that's when things start to get really interesting.
Robots could start to interact with the world.
In a much more nuanced way.
Yeah, much more like we do.
Exactly. It's not just about mimicking human actions anymore.
Right.
It's about giving them the ability to perceive the world through multiple senses.
It makes me wonder about all of Meta's work with touch and robotics. Even though they're not specifically focusing on smell right now, could all of that eventually lead to these multisensory robots?
I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Because remember, their ultimate goal is to create a more general-purpose AI.
Okay.
Machines that can learn and adapt to a wide range of situations.
Right.
And to do that effectively, they would almost certainly need to integrate multiple senses.
So maybe someday Meta will be making robots that can not only feel but smell, see, hear.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Imagine that. But it does raise some interesting questions, too.
Like what?
Well, as robots become more sophisticated, more human-like, how does that change our relationship with them?
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean,
think about it.
People get attached to their robot vacuums.
Exactly.
And those things can barely even navigate a room.
I know, right? So what happens when you have a robot that...
look like you.
Yeah, that can hold a conversation, that can understand your emotions.
Oh, that gets into some, like...
deep philosophical territory.
Yeah, what does it even mean to be human?
Exactly.
Okay, so lots to unpack there.
Definitely.
But bringing it back to Meta for a second.
Yeah.
What do you think their ultimate goal is with all this investment in robotics?
Well, it's a good question. It seems like there's been a bit of a shift in their focus. Right?
I was just thinking about that.
Remember, just a couple years ago, they were all about the metaverse.
Oh, yeah, the metaverse. It was like the next big thing.
It was everywhere.
Yep.
And then it kind of faded from the headlines.
Yeah, it did. But I don't think they've completely abandoned it.
Okay.
Because it's possible that they see robotics as a key part of making the metaverse a reality.
Instead of just putting on a headset.
Exactly.
And like being in a virtual world.
Right.
You could actually have like...
physical presence.
Yeah. Like a robot that's controlled by you.
Precisely. Robots with advanced tactile capabilities.
Oh, that's so cool.
They could act as avatars for users in the metaverse.
Wow. That's way beyond what I was imagining.
Right. Instead of just seeing and hearing.
Yeah.
You could actually feel things, manipulate objects,
Oh, that would be amazing.
experience physical sensations like heat and cold.
Okay, now that you mentioned the metaverse, it reminds me of something I read.
What's that?
Caitlin Kalinowski, the former head of hardware at Meta.
Right. She was leading the development of their AR glasses.
She recently moved to OpenAI.
Yeah, to lead their robotics and consumer hardware division.
What do you think that means?
I think it's a pretty clear sign that OpenAI,
Which is known for its cutting-edge AI.
yeah.
They're getting serious about robotics.
So could we be heading towards some kind of robotics rivalry?
Between Meta and OpenAI, it's definitely a possibility.
That would be something else.
It would be fascinating to watch.
And, that kind of competition could actually drive innovation.
Oh, absolutely. When you have two powerhouses like that,
Right.
pushing each other to be better.
It could lead to breakthroughs.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And if that leads to robots that can actually help solve real-world problems,
Yeah.
that's a win for everybody.
But it also kind of makes you think about,
A bigger picture.
yeah, the ethical side of
The
things.
implications.
If these companies are going to be creating these, super advanced robots.
We need to make sure they're used responsibly.
Right. It's not just about the technology itself.
It's about the impact it has on society.
So lots to consider.
Lots to consider. But, at the end of the day, I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be following the field of robotics.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like we're on the cusp of some really transformative changes.
I agree. And I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither. So, before we wrap things up completely, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've discussed today.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. From touch-sensitive fingertips to robot noses to the metaverse.
It really makes you think about where all of this is heading.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key takeaway for our listeners is this.
Okay.
The future of robotics is not predetermined. It's something we're all actively shaping.
Through our choices.
Through our choices, our investments, the conversations we have.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers.
We're active participants.
And we have a responsibility to make sure that this technology is used for good.
To create a better world for everyone.
That's a powerful message.
And it's one that we all need to keep in mind as we move into this new era of robotics.
Well said. So, on that note, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of robots that can feel. And a huge thank you to our expert for sharing your incredible insights.
It's been my pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive, and be sure to join us next time for another fascinating exploration of the world of technology.
It really is amazing to think about, where we've come from.
Right.
Like those old robots, the kind you'd see in a factory, they could barely move around.
Yeah, just welding and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about robots with a sense of touch. It's mind-blowing.
It is, and it's not just about them being able to feel, it's the potential, right?
Yeah.
What they can do with that sense of touch.
Precisely. We're talking about surgery, disaster relief, maybe even robots that can help us with everyday tasks around the house.
And what's so cool is that it's all happening so fast. It feels like every day there's a new breakthrough.
It really does. And I think a big part of that is the open source nature of a lot of this research.
Right, where everyone's sharing their ideas and building on each other's work.
Exactly. It's a global effort, a worldwide community of brilliant minds, all pushing the boundaries of what's possible with robotics.
And Meta's work with touch-sensitive robots, that's a prime example of how this technology is evolving.
Oh, absolutely. Their approach, focusing on adaptability and general purpose learning, that could be a game changer for how we design and interact with robots in the future.
Yeah, it's not just about programming a robot to do one specific task anymore.
Right. It's about giving them the ability to learn and adapt to new situations, just like humans do.
So what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's this. The future of robotics, it's not set in stone. It's something we're all actively shaping.
Through the decisions we make.
Exactly. Through our research, our investments, even the conversations we have about the ethical implications of these technologies.
It's a reminder that we're not just watching this happen, we're actually part of it.
We're active participants, and we have a responsibility to ensure that this incredible technology is used for good.
To make the world a better place.
Yes, exactly. To create a future where robots and humans can coexist and thrive together.
That's a powerful message, and I think the perfect note to end on.
I agree.
So that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of robots that can feel. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge thank you to our expert for sharing your incredible insights.
It's been a pleasure being here.
We hope you've learned something new, and be sure to tune in next time for another exciting exploration of the cutting edge of technology. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious.